now live.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. For the quick break, we do apologize. I did miss out on one because I inadvertently checked it off early. I would like to welcome the Beaumont Performing Arts Collective to present on a proposal this evening. So, City Clerk.
Thank you, Your Worship. I will admit Hunter and Sherry into the meeting here now.
Good evening, Hunter. Can you hear us? I think you're still on mute.
Good afternoon, Mayor Stewart. It's Sherry Vera here on behalf of the Performing Arts Collective, and we do have Hunter joining from the studio as well. So just want to make sure that she is on before I start.
She's on, but currently on mute. So
okay,
gave us a thumbs up. So I think we're good. So whenever you're ready.
He has the presentation, so I'll just wait for her to get her first slide up.
Okay, I see the screen.
Great. So thank you to Mayor Stewart and councillors for allowing us to come and speak to you today. The Beaumont Performing Arts Collective is a registered not-for-profit whose vision is to see a well-connected and supported performing arts facility in Beaumont. Next slide. The current members of the Performing Arts Collective are Ashley Reinhardt, the owner and director of the Seeds and Sprouts Early Learning Center, as well as the program director of the Grandin Out of School Care. We have Vicki Summers, who has a BA in Accounting and Finance, holds her CPA and ACCA designations with over 20 years experience working with various businesses and accounting roles. We're also pleased to have Quentin Tutusis, Director of Operations at Treaty 6 Productions. He's a Northern Cree pound maker and Saskatchewan world-class round dancer, singer, and hand drummer. And myself, who brings my background as a performer and working with volunteer groups in the performing arts, including touring groups and arts organizations in Saskatchewan, as well as in Alberta. I am a member of the Barnstormers Solidarity Performance Group that runs out of Ruminari Live. And of course, last but not least, is our fearless leader, Dr. Hunter Gates. She's a director, an actor, a stuntman, a theater maker, and an educator. Hunter has more than 30 years of experience in professional and community theater, film, and television. She is the managing director of Ruminari Live Arts in Beaumont. She's the director of the Hunter Gates Academy of Physical Theater, the CEO of Comedy for Communities International. She's also a board member of the Beaumont Chamber of Commerce, Beaumont Arts Council, and Rise Up Society of Alberta, as well as the Empowering Women Entrepreneurs in Beaumont. The project that we've brought for you this evening is a unique opportunity to partner with a local business person and create a 150-seat performing arts space in Beaumont within the next year. We will be able to leverage the current building climate and available commercial space in Beaumont, take advantage of millions of dollars in provincial and federal matching grant funding in this fiscal year, and develop that public-private partnership with a local arts business that will bring extensive expertise in program development and theater management, and to add a fully functioning professional performing arts venue and new community event space for our growing arts community in Beaumont. And at this time, I'm going to turn it over to Hunter so that she can share her vision with you all.
Hunter, you're still on mute.
Okay, so in the fall of 2020, Ruminari Live Arts was approached by some founders with a question of whether the small intimate theaters might be possible within the retail space that is in abundance in Beaumont. As managing director of Beaumont Art and Beaumont's Ruminari Live Arts, We created a vision for the creation of a small performing arts venue that would enhance the social and intellectual life of Beaumont. And in the event of success, becoming absolutely, visibly, and unmistakably a popular institution, making a large appeal to the whole community. We have 2 locations ready to take on this project. We need seed money and support from the city to make this a reality for Beaumont within the year. These 2 options are 5305 Magazine Ave, units 112 to 115, with a total of 6,365 square feet housed in Bryant Heritage Plaza on the south side. And also an opportunity at 5601 Magazine Ave, Building B, a 5,000 square foot standalone building at Place La Rose du Marais. At either location, the interior will be a space that generously embraces us and supports us with natural beauty and amazing artistic experiences individually. The design focuses on stunning acoustics in a dramatic setting, hosting concerts, live performances, cultural events, music ensembles, high definition broadcasts from artists from around the world, as well as classic and independent film. We are at a point of knowing that the programs are important, the performers are important, artistic leadership is important, but the building is also important. In this creation phase, we need to focus on the build as it is critical to the experience in as much as the performance, programming, leadership, education, and outreach initiatives. Project uses for the space: for theater, local arts groups, as well as professional attractions for plays, concerts, dance, and cultural presentations. Meetings can take place in the form of town hall, lectures, corporate events, training sessions. Live air to video can range from TED Talk events, lectures to live to air Saturday matinees. This market in live streaming is open to arts organizations, and it's becoming extremely popular for audiences. We also have cinema presentations that will have technical capacity of presenting movies of high quality. This would take the form of a movie club showing films from things like film festivals, maybe classic films, maybe indie films, or the venue could present second run feature films similar to the venue in Hinton, presenting items on an ongoing basis. The venue could offer community groups that are not arts driven, a venue that can hold fundraising events. Our theater lobby is designed for celebrations that can be used for wedding receptions, corporate events, and meetings. This space could accommodate a gallery, a crafters market, and small recitals. The studio space could be used as a venue operator, by the venue operator, or arts groups for workshops and educational events, and individuals who could use the facility for their own events or family events. The demand for theater. We have a shortfall of available rental venues in Beaumont. There's a need to provide and develop performing arts in Beaumont, and we need to look at providing entertainment for our community within our community. Realizing that council finds itself in a vicious conundrum regarding the performing arts space in Beaumont, we may be able to help solve that problem. We are proposing a 150-seat theater that is in comparison with other successful community theaters like the Walter Dale in Edmonton or the Manluck in Wetaskiwin. It is cost effective. The capital cost is relatively low compared to other options. There's an opportunity to partner with local small businesses and leverage proven expertise within the theater department and management of our facility. The standalone site is already available, fully serviced, and ready to start building immediately. It fills a need that, as Beaumont currently has 0 performing arts spaces available for theater, music, or dance, despite our ever-growing community demand. If the venue is publicly subsidized, the proposed theater would be made available to all community arts groups. Project costs and options have already been determined for this project. We're looking at a 1-year completion. In the future, the proposed theater could continue to work in tandem with the 400-seat theater center when it's built. It could then be Beaumont's venue for smaller and more intimate productions. Our timeline for Bryant Heritage Plaza is 7 to 10 months. For Place La Rose des Marais is 6 to 12 months. The numbers, it's always good. The numbers, our builder is Cambrian Construction. The architect that we have is Dialogue. Our cost breakdown is $413,061 for general cost. Demolition is $30,000. Building cost $2,104,758. Total budget is $2,547,819. I always like to throw in the GST, so we have it in front of our eyes. Our total cost is $4,429,311. This is not a space that we would own unless we purchased it, which is an extra $2 million. If we do go with this option, the lease is $11,000 a month for the first year, and it goes all the way up in a grading scale to $20,000 per month in year 5. Place La Rose des Marais, the builder is Synergy Construction. Our general contractor is ICM Project Management. We would own this particular land, and it is $450,000. Our hard and soft shell cost $2,415,000. Our building cost $471,057. Total budget $7,671,507. Our GST again at $2,450,000. And our total cost is $10,121,507. So what are we asking for? For Bryant Heritage Plaza, we're asking for a $3 million outlay, and for Place La Rose des Marais, a $9 million. We are wanting to apply for the Provincial Community Facilities Enhancement Grant. This is a matching grant, and if obtained, we will get a $1 million grant. We've spoken to Brad Rutherford, our MLA, who is willing to write a letter of support for this grant. The deadline for this year's intake for this grant is June 15th. So we are looking to see if we are able to at least get a letter of support from the city if they wish to proceed with this. We're asking the city to contribute the $3 million to the project build of Bryant Heritage Plaza. This would contribute and allow us over half of that build total cost. If the city decides that they feel that the standalone option is preferable, we're asking for $9 million to assure that this build costing is obtained within our time limit. Thank you so much for letting us talk today. And if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to ask.
Well, I do appreciate your coming in today. This is an exciting project. Yeah, it's an interesting thing. Just looking at the asks, this is going to require probably more time and conversation and some admin time than we have tonight. But before I make the motion to move this to a committee of the whole for a grander discussion, I will open it up to questions and comments from members of council. Councilor Margal-Swain.
Yeah, thanks, Hunter and Sheriff, for coming in tonight, and certainly I appreciate the vision. A lot of work gone into this. You know, as you're talking through that, you know, it all sounded like it fit within the vision for, you know, supplementing it and helping out the performing arts community and other areas like you mentioned there. I guess the one thing I can't quite wrap my head around here is, maybe I'll ask the question first. So, yeah, let's say Beaumont contributed to this. Who would operate the space?
Right now, the group that we have a board that's put together, the Beaumont Performing Arts Collective, and they are the ones that would run this space.
Thank you. And so if either the city or a user group or some collection of individuals wanted to use that space, they would go through and rent out the board. So there'd be no controlling interest at all from the city of Beaumont. This is purely just a cash injection to help you guys get off the feet.
Absolutely.
Okay. So
just to clarify, effectively what you're asking for is a grant?
Mhm. Yes.
Sorry, Councillor.
That's okay. And I mean, obviously, you guys are aware that, this council is trying to figure out how to fill that space for a performing arts facility in our community. We've struck up that committee. So I'm not sure what any conversations that have gone on there. That would be a public facility. Looks like, owned and operated by Beaumont. So I guess where I struggle with this, and I'm hoping you can provide some clarification for me, is that this is using taxpayer dollars to fund. I understand it's a not-for-profit piece, but this is a pretty significant $3 million grant to help get this one not-for-profit off the ground. And yes, it would fill a need in a space, but I'm not quite sure how taxpayer dollars. I personally could justify putting $3 million taxpayer dollars into this when we could look at whether it's the $3 million or the $9 million. That's a significant portion towards building a broader facility that we've all agreed here that is needed in Beaumont. That would be owned by the city of Beaumont and operated that way. So I'm just curious if you could help me get through that question.
Absolutely. This space would be in tandem, and it's a small and intimate space, and it is for the people of Beaumont. It's not just a private space. This will be a space that Beaumontonians would be able to enjoy on an ongoing basis. Right now, we have an opportunity with COVID and with what's going on that we have builders, we have engineers, we have architects that are willing to work to get this to fruition within the year, and have that gusto going. What will happen with our arts facility, our arts center, if this proves to be what we know it's going to be, it's an active space. It will only solidify that Beaumont needs that larger space, that we have some grounding to say, okay, this is great if we have a small space, but we also need a larger space. And that makes the center even more valid in the time frame, the 5-10 years time frame that we're looking at for that space.
I see Ms. Vera has her hand up. Maybe she wants to add on that question.
Yeah, I guess just in response to Councillor Swain's comments, the details of how we would structure the relationship in this public-private partnership with the nonprofit, we can work out those details to the comfort of council. We have a business person, local business person, offering and having spent a good deal of her own money to actually bring this project to you, fully costed, ready to go. And she has also supported the Performing Arts Collective in getting off the ground and putting the seed money together for us to be functioning. We have a really experienced theater director and manager willing to help manage this space, which takes that off the plate for the city of Beaumont. So I see lots of positives. And although this is a unique kind of relationship for Beaumont to enter into as a taxpayer, I think public-private partnerships are really important. And I really would think it is worth going through the process of trying to figure out how to define that relationship so that taxpayers are really comfortable with it.
Yeah, I appreciate the additional information, and I don't doubt that the space would be of use and value. But personally, and I'm sure myself and my family would spend a lot of time down there, but I'm not sure how I could provide a decision today with the June 15th date for $3 million. That seems a lot, and I know you guys have done a lot of work to get here. But I know not the answer you're looking for, but for me personally, I'd need a lot more information around this. My gut initially was that we needed a public space. If this was able to get off the ground, great for Beaumont. Absolutely, but I'm not sure I could commit any decision today on a $3 million or a $9 million ask. So I'll leave it there for now and see what my other councillors have to share. But I do appreciate you bringing this forward. I know not the answers you're looking for from me anyway, but it does look like an exciting space, and definitely wish you guys luck. So I'll leave it there and maybe come back if there are other questions or comments from other councillors.
Thank you very much. Just a quick reminder to council, like this is going to require a broader, fuller discussion. So this is just for some quick overhead issues. Not looking for any individual councilor's personal position on this tonight. This is going to need some time to gel and think. And like I say, I will move at the end of this discussion to move this to a committee of the whole so that council can consider it in its fullness of how we want to proceed with this project. So sure, Councillor, sorry, go ahead.
To be fair, the ask was to provide $3 million by June 15th. So I'm providing my position on that.
The ask was to provide a letter of support for the grant. So I do have my question is how does that work if we're not decided on an option? But I'll get there in a minute. Councillor Van Newkirk.
Mayor, you can start with that question if you like. I was going to switch gears a bit. So if you want to follow that train of thought and then come back to me, I'd be fine with that. Sure,
I will do that. So yeah, the question is with the grant application, looking for a letter of support from the city, like what exactly does that entail if we haven't committed funds or settled on an option and we're going forward? June 15th seems like it's only 7 days away.
Yeah, we know. Yeah, no, yeah, I know. It's in order for us to apply for this grant, we need to have a letter of support from municipal. It was recommended to us that we have a letter from that they would be interested in putting this together. If something falls through and that doesn't happen, then the grant is null and void and it's fine. It's just, can we get it in by the deadline? Then great. And if you decide on the 22nd or whenever the meeting of the whole is, that this is not something that you want to pursue, then that we just take out our grant application. That was the process that they advised us on.
Okay, that'll be another question. Councillor Van Newkirk.
Yeah, my question was still going to speak on the funding path, I would guess, but I guess simply stated, if you didn't gain the support from council and the city, do you guys have a plan B, in the background that you would be prepared to move forward with this project without city support? Where are you at with that?
Absolutely. It's just we can do it now within a year. We would have to wait a year or two in order to progress it, just so that we could get our funding, another funding source that is going to support it. We have a lot of partners that are interested in helping, and that's either operationally or through the build, sponsoring different things within the facility. So it just means that it would postpone our plan. It doesn't mean it's off the table. It just means that we postpone.
Yeah, no, that's good. It's a lot to digest tonight. Thanks for coming in for sure. There's a lot of thoughts going through my mind around the budget process, the feasibility study, the steering committee, the library plan that, as you acknowledge, there's a lot of moving parts on the arts conversation in Beaumont. So yeah, thanks for coming in. That's it for me right now.
Councillor Danlick.
Thank you, Mayor Stewart. Good evening, Ms. Gates. Good evening, Ms. Vera. Thank you for your presentation. I have a couple of quick questions, if you wouldn't mind. Could you please expand, if you can, on Mayor Stewart's earlier question regarding what exactly does the letter of support entail? If you could just expand on that a little more specific, if you don't mind. I didn't quite get the meat and potatoes of what that letter needs to say exactly at this point.
Yeah, the matching grant. Sure, I'm sorry for cutting you off. The matching grant for that is it's a $1 million facility enhancement grant that is going on. If the city is interested in pursuing or support for this particular project, then they said, what I was told is that if the city would say that they would be interested in supporting this at this amount of money, at whatever that amount of money is. it's just a letter of support and not necessarily a letter saying, yes, we're going to give it to them. And that's the way they worded it for me, because of the time restrictions.
Okay, so if I'm reading you correctly, just to clarify, if you wouldn't mind, please, you're suggesting a letter of support would not have any kind of financial equivalency attached to it, which I don't understand how it would be a matching grant unless the city's prepared to put money in. That's my understanding. A letter of support would require us to commit to some kind of financial assistance. That's how a letter of support, in my interpretation, a letter of support would be required. And I don't believe that we're at the stage right now this evening, or by the 15th, to provide that letter at this point. That's my understanding. If I'm wrong, please correct me. So that's my first question. Thank you for answering my first question. My second question was, you mentioned your presentation, one of you ladies did, sorry, on matching grants. This is the one grant you mentioned. You mentioned federal and provincial grants as well. Are there other grants that are available? And you say matching from who? Matching from so if the city puts in money, it gets matched, or where's it being matched from? I'm assuming from the city, but can you clarify that, please?
The city will match, the city's funding would be matched by the province. There's also matching grants for the federals have it, and a couple of corporations have matching grants that we're pursuing right now. And so once we secure those, and as we progressively reach out to corporations, and we're progressively being proactive in reaching out to get funding for this project. And so as we get it, we just got a $20,000 grant that now we can put into a matching grant for the federal government, just as an example.
Thank you. I'll yield the floor, Mayor Stewart. I may have a follow-up question later on. I may not. I'll tell what time is. Thank you.
Councilor Hendricks, thank you.
Yes, Your Worship, thank you. Just a question about potential financing options. I understand the two that we've given here this evening. There's lease backs, there's take back mortgages. Have those been explored?
Not at this point, they have not.
So if you had, with one of the vendors, a lease back arrangement and a letter from them, would that not give you the lift you need for your grant program?
We know that the Bryant Heritage Plaza is not willing to discuss that at all. That is one option that the Bryant Heritage Plaza program would not. We are just starting our discussions and funding with the Place de la Rose des Marais. They just need to know there's money on the table before they actually give any information. So that's where we are with them. Welcome to my life.
Right. So one of the things that could be discussed, of course, is the fact that if there's an ability to sign a long-term arrangement, long-term deal, and it's either co-signed backed by the City of Beaumont on the lease side, at least in the capital dollars don't have to come out of the community and on the front end, and that would allow you to get your build in. They typically would go out and get it financed anyway somewhere, and those dollars today are pretty cheap given the rates. So why wouldn't they look at a tenant that's prepared to sign a deal for an extended period of time, fill a space, take in some well-needed cash flow? Maybe that's the route you should take, and then come back to Beaumont with just an ask to make sure that that's covered, by way of some kind of an agreement, long-term, whatever. So.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Councilor Hendricks, thank you. Councilor Barnhart.
Thank you, Mayor, and good to see you, Hunter, and to see your proposal in coming forward, because I know how hard you've been working on it. And I have answers to all of my questions except for one, and it could just be that I missed it. You presented 2 locations. Is your request or is your plan to have both locations, or are you looking for one of those 2?
One of those 2.
One of those 2. And your priority would be which one?
That's a very good question. If I was the city, I would think that a standalone building would be more beneficial to a long ongoing. A theater is not something that is built no matter how large or how small, it's not built as a temporary structure. This is a long-standing cultural space. And so if I had my choice, I would do the standalone. It has everything it needs. And we're not dealing with any landlords or any other tenants within its area. But as financing is one of the options here, and there's mounds of space down here on the south side that is available. If it is a cost effective, then there's nothing wrong with the plan for Bryant Heritage Plaza here.
And if I may, Bryant Heritage Plaza is the space you currently occupy, or is it a different space?
You know, it's exactly where it's where the studio is right now.
So you would be transforming your existing space into a different purpose?
No, because this space is Ruminary Live. That space would be the theater, and that's run by the Performing Arts Collective.
Oh, okay. Thanks. I just was a little confused on that. But like my colleagues have said, I think we need some more time with our administration as well to look at this. So thank you very much for coming in.
Councilor Tenlock, I see you raised your hand, and then.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Stewart. Ms. Gates, if you wouldn't mind indulging me just for a brief moment. You're suggesting this would be kind of a partnership, was part of the language you used in part of the presentation, which I appreciate. The ask was 3 million or 9 million, if I remember from your presentation. Let's take the $3 million option just for a moment here. I believe Mayor Stewart made it clear in earlier his comments that it is actually more of a grant you're looking for. So how do you define the partnership if you're looking for a grant of money? To me, a partnership would involve an ongoing relationship where we're involved in the operation, we're involved in the profit perhaps, we're also involved in the loss in that thing. That to me is a partnership. A grant is a grant, and a grant is simply a one-time gift and then we're out. I don't see that as being a partnership. So if you could please define to me, if you could from your presentation, how you see this as being a partnership as opposed to a grant. If you could indulge me with that, please. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. When we're building a cultural space, it's not like running a business. It's a social partnership with the community that it surrounds. And it's an ongoing give and take because we're talking about culture. We're not talking about sweaters. We will always, as a theater, as a performance space, we always have a connection with the city that we're in, and we add to the city that we're in, and they hopefully will enjoy, take part in the culture that we're offering. So we're actually presenting a social partnership with the city.
Okay, thank
I see
you.
Ms. Sherry, you get your hand up again. You could want to add in.
Yeah, thanks. I think to that end, the other parts of the partnership that we can explore, Dr. Gates has years and years of theater management experience and expertise that she is offering to bring to the Performing Arts Collective to help us be successful operationally in running a successful theater. Ruminary Live would be one of the anchor tenants and one of the main users of the theater space. So her arts education programs and performing groups that are running out of there would be users of the space. So those are all things that Hunter, as a business person, is bringing to the table here as part of that partnership. And we have a business plan that we've developed that's 27 pages long. We also have all of the drawings and everything else to go with the two options for the two centers. So happy to share those at some point, but just wanted to try and, I know it's a new concept for council, and I do think that there are other examples of successful public-private partnerships that could make this a really doable option that gets us an arts center soon, within a year. It's just phenomenal. And for about I think it was around $295 a square foot, which I have seen some of your other quotes at other meetings. That's a lot less per square foot. And the other thing that, Beaumont needs a variety of art spaces, just like we have a variety of culture or sports centers. We have 4 hockey rinks. We have various different venues and opportunities. We've got a private business, the Arch, running out of your brand new sports complex. So yeah, it's just a matter of looking at this as a different kind of partnership.
Thank you for clarifying. Mayor Sir, I'll yield the floor now. I do share some of Councilman Swain's earlier comments, but I look forward to the next discussion on this topic. Thank you very much. Thank you, ladies.
All right, thank you very much. I really do appreciate this discussion, and it's an exciting project, and it does fill the needs. Fortunately, I don't think we're going to get there on the timeline. So when's the? I know we want to move fast. We got a year, but I think we have some time to take advantage of it. My question is if we miss this intake, when's the next intake?
It's only a year. It'll go back in June 15th for the $1 million grant. It's a year. It's a yearly grant. It goes June 15th every year.
Oh, they only do it once a year?
Yeah.
At one point, they were doing it biannually. Okay.
Yeah.
So I do think this is going to require some further in-depth discussion. So I'd like to make a motion to accept this report as information. And if you could send us your presentation documents, that would be great. And then I'm going to look to admin to see when that might come back to us for a bit of a fuller discussion. CEO?
Thank you very much, Mayor Stewart. We're going to really refer back to the comments that Councillor Hendricks provided. There's a number of options that need to be explored here, including reviewing of the business case and other suitable funding sources. So it's going to take some time. I think it's very clear you're not going to meet the June 15th. We've got a number of priorities. We've just formed a performing arts steering committee that's got a bunch of moving parts as well. So I would suggest that sometime later in the fall could be an option.
Okay. Thank you, CEO. Discussion on the motion. Councillor Swain.
The motion is to accept it as information, but I haven't heard a motion about asking for admin to do any work. Could you just clarify the motion?
Sorry, to accept this information and bring back to a future community of the whole. And the CAO said that timeline is currently looking like September, October.
Yeah, so if I could speak to that, and I hate to be the bad guy here, but I'll share my perspective. I don't know where council is thinking we're going to get $3 million from. We don't have any money in grants, right? So we've got three options: grants, we don't have any money. We either deplete our reserves to get this $3 million, or we go the tax increase route, and that's looking at about a 17% tax increase by the time we look at $3 million, about 175K. So I don't know where this is, how this is possible for this council in this term, until the next budget cycle. I think this is a great opportunity, and I wish it every success, but I don't think this is something that the city should be contributing to.
Well,
and by asking, so if I can finish, to ask administration to go and do a bunch of work on top of the ask that we've already had, I think we need to first look at what our options are for the broader community. And that's where our public taxpayer dollars should go towards. Wait for that information to come back. I recognize that there's a lot of great work here, but the presenters talked about their option B, and maybe that timeline's a little bit longer. And unfortunately, that's where I sit on this. I don't want administration to put any more time into this one. Certainly come in and work with the steering committee and go through that information and talk to the steering committee if they're not part of it. I'm not sure, and see how this could participate with it. But my personal priority is the larger space to fill the needs of the broader Beaumont, and then we can look to supplement there. I think $3 million, if we go the tax increase or depleting our reserves, will completely hamstring us from doing anything with the broader performing arts community in the city. So I don't support the motion to ask administration to bring this back. I think we accept it as information and leave it to the folks here to reach out to the performing arts, to the steering committee and have the discussions that way. I just don't know where we're going to get this money from. And I don't want administration to spend the time looking at it when we know what our finances are right now.
Okay, so just for my clarification, you'd rather see it go to the steering committee than to admin?
I just think we accept this information, and unfortunately we can't provide that letter by the 15th. I think everyone's agreement on that, but I personally, I'd leave it up to the presenters to then reach out to the steering committee and get involved in that process to make sure it's part of the bigger picture. Like I said, I know I'm coming across as the bad guy here, but I don't see how we can provide taxpayer dollars for this. So I'd love to see it get up and running. I'd love to see Plan B. I don't think, I know I'm not going to be part of Plan A to provide $3 million for the space. So I don't, if that's my vote there, I don't know why I'd ask administration to spend a bunch of time and effort looking into this and then bringing it back to the committee where I know where I stand on it. So that's just my perspective.
Well, to clarify, I'm not asking them to come up with a funding source right now. I'm asking them just to bring it back so that we can, like, we've now debated. Now we're into the debate upon whether or not this is feasible. And I was trying to avoid that debate this evening. And I'd rather have a grander discussion in the committee of the whole where we could actually go through and debate some of these items that you're bringing up. And that's all. That was all my intention.
Yeah, for sure. But we're just kicking it down the road. If you can answer me where you think we could get $3 million from in the next 6 months, then hey, I'll be happy to go down that route. But unless you want to deplete the reserves or have a larger tax increase, I don't know other way. So if you can convince me that we've got the finances somehow to do this, then I'm with you. But if not, then I'm not gonna vote to ask administration to go down and do some work on something that we don't have the finances for.
Councillor Hendricks.
Interesting debate given the topic and given the agenda tonight. Seems to me that this item normally would move to the next stage, no matter what, and that would go to a committee of the whole meeting to have a conversation. If we're going to get into debate on what the town's city's finances are right now, nobody's prepared to have that debate, at least not that I'm aware of. So I think to be fair to the presenters and certainly to be fair to the process, that's the normal process, which we take it back to this COTW, and then we could expand on it. I don't think we're asking our admin to do anything other than allow us to have a conversation about it, unless the COTW is happening right now, and then I'd be happy to start that conversation.
No, I just want to bring it back for the grander conversation with you, Councillor Hendricks.
Right. So,
Councillor Barnhart, followed by Councillor Van Newkirk.
Thank you, Mayor. And I'm just going to weigh in here on sending it to committee of the whole, because I do think we want to have a fulsome discussion there. I think what threw us off a bit, our CAO presented that he needed to do a lot of work on this before bringing it back. And I don't think that's what I'm asking for. I would just like to have a conversation about it to see if there's enough support to do anything further. So I think we can have it at the next COTW. I don't think we need to wait until late fall, because we're getting into the election time. And I'd rather have the discussion, see if there's enough support to take it to the next level. But I would not want a lot of work done on it at this time until we've had that discussion, which I'm not prepared to have tonight. And I don't think our administration is either.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Van Newkirk.
Yeah, just a question for administration. I was just digging for our upcoming COTW topics and just wondering, if we bring this conversation to a COTW meeting, what is that time spent going to be replacing that was already planned on being discussed? Can administration, what are our priorities and how would we manage those priorities for the upcoming COTW meetings?
Yeah, that's a very good question. The reports that are due for the next COTW were due this morning. So it will lengthen that agenda or it will remove an item. I don't have the agenda in front of me right now. You do say a key word, and that's priorities. I thought we were working off of the priorities, and so this one is certainly going to circumvent that. If we are back next week, we'll be coming back with nothing extra, so there won't be a recommendation. We have no other information. We'll come back with a copy of this presentation, and council can have the same conversation, I suppose.
Yeah, and that's the crux of my concern is if the presenters don't have any time to, you know, go and talk about some of the ideas that, you know, Councillor Hendricks has done, and we're just taking this presentation and bringing it back. I know we haven't had a wholesome discussion tonight, but, you know, the information will be the same, right? So that I'm kind of struggling with the hurry up timeline, struggling less with about bringing it back to committee of the whole for discussion, similar to what Councillor Hendricks said, you know, that's a process, you know, we could follow, but, you know, what I'm struggling with is what COTW and when, because there are other things that were in queue before this issue, you know, come in front of us, you know. And granted, we have a arts feasibility study tonight, and we just struck a steering committee on the arts. So now we're introducing a third conversation there. And, you know, Mayor, you didn't want to hear debate, but you know, where my head is at is, you know, talk to the steering committee and get involved in that, see where this might fit in the bigger picture, right? That's where my head's at right now. So.
Yeah, this was sort of the conversation I was hoping to have at COTW. Councillor Stout, followed by Councillor Danlock.
Yes. My thinking is too that the normal process that we would follow with something like this is we bring it back to COTW so we can have that fulsome discussion that we're not going to have tonight, and issues of budgeting and could be addressed at that point. I'd like to see it sooner rather than later. I recognise that it will take time to gather the necessary extra information we need to make some of those decisions. My question then becomes: is there any scope for a special COTW meeting? Or
That's always a possibility.
Because that's something that might get us around this is an emergent issue, right? This is something that we didn't plan for. That provides an opportunity that we may or may not wish to explore is really what and we need to have that discussion as to whether or not we want to explore it, or at least I do, and I would like to have it with the rest of council, and okay. at a fairly quick pace, so that we can make an informed decision. So I'm kind of aligning with Councillor Barnhart, although I accept that, yeah, we need to add some more information to this before we can progress further.
All right, Councillor Danlock, that'll close off round one.
Thank you, Mayor Stewart. I share Councillor Monkoff-Swain's position on the finance part of it and his concern about administration doing some work. I don't want to see administration do a bunch of work on this if it's not going to go anywhere. I understand that, but can you please clarify the actual motion itself? Because Sam has an interpretation, his statements were based on his interpretation of the motion, and I'd really appreciate exactly knowing what the motion is, because if it is the way I think it is, I'm inclined to vote against it at this point based on Councillor Monkoff-Swain's comments earlier, but my council colleagues looking for some more information, a chance to debate it, committee of the whole. I understand what they're asking to do. So could you please clarify the motion to know exactly what I'm voting on? I'm not trying to be critical here. I just want to understand where Sam's coming from, and also with other councilors looking for a chance to have a discussion. But a discussion I'm okay with, but I don't want the administration to do any work on this until we have some idea where we stand as a council to debate any further. So could you please clarify the motion as you had mentioned moments ago, please?
My motion is to accept the report as information and bring it back to a committee of the whole meeting so council can have a fulsome discussion about how we want to deal with this item. I don't know how we got down the rabbit hole trying to fund it. Okay. I'm with the other council members. I want to be able to have a discussion, and I want to be able to take a decent amount of time to do it, because we have taken a lot of time in this meeting that I didn't anticipate to even talk about having a discussion. So okay, that's where I'm at.
So to clarify, if I may, Mayor Stewart, the motion, the way you interpret it, is bring back the committee of the whole at the future, but have no work done by administration between now and that discussion. Some committee of the whole down the road.
Well, don't kid yourself. Administration is going to have to do a little bit of work on this.
I understand.
Even if it's just preparing the report and bringing it back and doing a couple of quick things. Like, this is going to cause work for administration.
I understand. So if Mayor, sorry, if CEO Schwartz could identify how much work he thinks they need to do, I want to avoid that until we have some kind of political idea and any will we're going any further. I am of the position as Muckoff Swain regarding where the money's going to come from, and I have a concern with that using public funds. So again, trying to avoid debate. I apologize for that, but I want to clarify what we're actually voting on. Thank you.
Voting on a discussion, but CAO, you got a comment on that or no? No.
You want me to comment on it? No, I didn't hear a question.
Okay. So go opening up round two, and we're going to make this really brief and then call a question. Councillor Muckoff Swain, followed by Councillor Van Nieuwkerk. If anybody else wants on the list, do it now, because unless you're on before Councillor Muckoff Swain is finished speaking, we're going to call that question. So.
Yeah, thanks. So let me clarify it. I appreciate if we want to have a conversation after, and I heard some councillors say this isn't the time to debate, and fine, so let's have that conversation at COTW. But then I heard Councillor Stout say, you know, I'm waiting, I want more information from administration. So that's two different things. I think if we want, if council wants administration to look into this, to dive into this and bring back all the information around how we'd fund it and all that sort of stuff, then that's the full timeline that was initially talked about. If it's just, let's talk about it as this group, because we don't want to talk about it here, then adding it on to next week's agenda, fine. But the expectation is that there's no new information. We're just debating it. So that's the, I'm not quite clear on. Seems some people want more information. Some people just want a chance to sit down and talk about the information that's in front of us. So I would like some clarification on what option that is, because that will obviously determine my vote here.
Right now, I just want council to be able to have a discussion on whether this is an idea we want to proceed with, and then how we want to go forward. So if it's administration bringing back a bunch of information, if it's spinning it off to the steering committee, or if it's killing it outright, that's the discussion that needs to be had. And that's the discussion I'm trying to get to tonight. But everybody keeps clouding this issue.
Well, but why wouldn't we just have that discussion tonight?
Well, because this is supposed to be a 10-minute thing that's not taking an hour.
Yeah, so we kick it an hour down for the next meeting. We just have the same conversation for an hour there.
Councillor Van Nieuwkerk.
Yeah, thank you. Been trying to collect my thoughts a little bit around this and try and put some closure to things. The logistics are clouding my mind before I put the closure to that. I found our upcoming list for COTW, and we are 5, maybe 6 items deep on June 15th. Then we have an item on the consent agenda tonight that cancels July 20th, which kicks us into August 17th Committee of the Whole. When I look at all of those things, the meeting preparation that has went in, is based upon our priorities, and it's based upon the priorities that council has been working on for quite some time. I can't say with any more authority that I unequivocally support the arts conversation in Beaumont. I asked the mayor to be, the council member on the Beaumont Arts Council. I supported the studies that we're doing. I support, the groups in Beaumont where I can. I support the arts conversation, and I want a facility built as bad as anyone else does in Beaumont. What I don't want is to rush a conversation, and what I don't want is to rearrange our priorities that we've worked very hard on, next week to ram a presentation in when we're not going to be prepared. Because if administration doesn't do some work and answer some of the questions that have been raised tonight, for me, I'm in the same spot. And that would be, if council supports more work, then council will have to have that vote to support more work or not. And we've had a half of the discussion already tonight. So my support, I'm going to have to vote yes or no, and my support isn't there to bring it back to next week's Committee of the Whole meeting. And I know your motion says a future committee of the whole meeting, but that future committee of the whole meeting could be August, or it could be, I don't even actually know that we have a September one because of the election calendar, right? So the committee of the whole meetings that we have available right now, in my view, is one, and that would be August 17th. You know, if that happened, there's time for the presenters to catch up with the steering committee and see where this falls into place in the broader arts conversation. You know, I do see a facility like this having the possibility of being a part of a solution in Beaumont, you know, with a big facility and a smaller facility, but you know, the funding questions are there for me as well. So anyways, lots of thoughts there. I don't see anyone else's hands up, so I guess you'll call your question.
Yeah, so actually, based on that comment, I'm going to split this motion. I'm going to do one motion to accept this report as information, and then a second motion, because I still wanted this discussion to come back. But I'm specifically going to bring it to the committee of the whole in August, unless we call a special sooner. But that's where we're going to go. So first motion, I'm going to split this motion. So the motion to be voted on at this point is to accept this report as information. All the question, all in favor. And that carries unanimously. Second motion, to bring this item back for a broader discussion at the August committee of the whole meeting. Discussion on the motion. Councilor Margoff Swain, and then we'll call this vote.
Yes, so just you table the motion, right?
Sorry?
Just clarification, some people voted, I want to raise my hand, and so I just want to be clear. Did you call the vote, or did you table the motion?
No, I called the motion and then called for discussion, and people jumped the gun on the question, so we'll call the question again in a minute.
Okay, so can you just clarify, in order for me to get there, are you expecting administration to do a bunch of work to bring information back, or is this a chance for us to have the discussion as council with the same information in front of us?
Oh, yes.
My expectation is we'll have this discussion with some of the same information in front of us, and I would hope that there would be a little bit of work done on it between now and then to clarify some of these issues that were brought up today. But I will have that. We can clarify that with the CAO later. Councilor Van Newkirk.
Yeah, that level of work is where my vote is at. If we're going to have this same discussion again on August 17th and administration pens the report and adds it onto the agenda, then then we're there. But the level of work that would need to be done to answer a bunch of the questions that have been brought up tonight, because why wouldn't you want to do that pre-work ahead of time if we've already had, those concerns have already been raised? That becomes the issue of priorities again for me. And administration is working very hard on all the things we've already tasked them to do. I do know that this is an emerging issue and we do have room for those, but.
Councilor Hendricks.
Your worship, in a COTW, we'd have Mr. Dollar available. I'm sure Mr. Dollar wouldn't have to spend a minute of his time prior to that meeting to have the conversation at the meeting as to where we would be with the various options that we've just discussed. He'd have the fiscals, he'd have the opportunities, he'd have the reserves. He'd be able to let us know where we're at in terms of the long-term fiscals that we're looking at, given everything else that's moving here in terms of pieces. Any kind of loan guarantees, what works or doesn't work for lease back guarantees, whatever the province allows a municipality to do. I think those are on his fingertips. And that's the kind of conversation we have. And I think in short order, we'd have a up or down, yes or no. Do we want to keep moving? I don't think we're doing a full thesis on this thing. We just want to have the conversation about, where's the reality of us fiscally today, and what could we do? And he'd give us his opinions, and that's I think where it would end. So up or down. So if he was here tonight, I'd start asking questions tonight.
All right. Call the question. All in favor? That motion is passed 4-3. Councillors Daniluk, Van Newkirk, and Monkoff Swain in opposition. Mayor Stewart, Councillor Barnhart, Councillor Hendricks, and Councillor Stout in favor. Thank you very much. All right, so appreciate all the hard work and discussion on that item. I know it probably wasn't much the answer you were looking for tonight, but it's the best we can do at this at the time, and we'll see what we can do to bring this back. So thank you to the presenters for coming in tonight and bringing this.
Thanks very much for having us, Mayor Stewart.
All right, so that brings us to, we might as well just keep on going. Item 8A, Performing Arts Feasibility Study.
Good evening, Your Worship and members of council. The recommendation before you this evening is that council receive the updated Performing Arts Feasibility Study as information. Of course, this is continuing work from 2020 that administration has been doing with RWDI Air Inc. on a Performing Arts Feasibility Study. At the committee of the whole meeting February 19th and 21, administration provided the draft study for information, and direction was given to further explore options at the CCBCC location as part of this work. The follow-up work then looked at the Mary Winspear facility in Sydney, BC, which houses the Charlie White Theatre and a community hall, to determine if that example would be feasible at the CCBCC site. The report is attached in your package. That report discussed the scope of the program, site limitations, options, operational best practices, and cost estimates for a building program. Our WDI examined 3 scenarios for that site. One was expansion of the current building to the east, expansion to the west, both to incorporate a theater addition. And the third scenario would be an option to renovate the existing hall to accommodate a theater. I've got Mr. Rick Schick with us this evening, and he's got a brief PowerPoint, and we'll be happy to go over it with council. If we can let him in, City Clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Stewart. I'll just let him in now.
Assuming he's still there.
Excellent. He's in the meeting.
Hi, Rick. Welcome.
Hi, everybody. Can you hear me? I hope. Yes. No?
Have you?
Great. Good. You have nightmares about Zoom, and it doesn't work at the most critical time.
It's all yours, Rick. You can take it away on your slides there.
Okay, good, good. Okay, next slide. So what this exercise is to do is to look at developing a performing arts space adjacent to the community center, and using the Charlie White model, the Mary Winspear. Next slide. Okay, well, before I actually go into this, let's just review what the Charlie White Theater is. It's part of the Saanich Peninsula Memorial Community Center, basically. Called the Mary Winspear Center now. And it's been a hall for from the 30s until now, and it was renovated some time ago, and the theater was added at that time. So it's deceiving when you look at the theater, is that because the theater itself is a standalone, it uses some of the shared spaces within the Mary Winspear Center to actually to function. The lobbies, the bars, the loading dock, the washrooms, things like that. And what that does effectively is reduce the square footage of the space that you have to build. So 3 development options. One on the east side of the building, and we'll look at some drawings in a minute. One on the east side of the building. This is the smaller of the 2 spaces each side of the community center. There is just enough space to do it, but the downside of it is you lose 50 parking stalls to do that, which is considerable for this site. But it is doable. The other design challenge is to control the or to provide the emergency exiting for the multi-purpose space in the center. Right now, they spill out into a corridor come lobby, and then from there out into the parking lot. If we don't, there isn't really enough space to provide that exiting. So we would have to turn that exiting and for it to come out to both ends. Now there could be some code issues there. A code consultant have to be consulted to make sure we can do it. I'm pretty sure it's doable. We just have to figure out a way to do it. Again, the problem is that there isn't a lot of space, extra space between the building and the property line in there. The second option is on the west side. Now there's more room on the west side, and there's option A and B on the west side. The issue on the west side is the senior center. It is in the way, so to speak. The two options are to remove the senior center and incorporate it into the theater lobby that we're going to build, or the other option is to build to the north of the senior center and leave it there. The downside of option 2 is it increases the cost, because you have to increase the cost for the senior center and allow for it. The second, and of course, is demolition. The second option 2A, there's enough space to do it, but you lose the profile of the theater on the street, and it makes it harder to see. And unfortunately, it's on the service side of the community center, which is positive in one way. It means that you've got access to the catering kitchen and all those other things. But what it means is it's getting the audience off the street to the space is kind of glitchy. But all three options are doable. Next slide. Now, if you go this route and develop this, there are some shared spaces that you can use in the community center. It would take some renovation, but not a lot. The theater offices could be in there. Overflow washrooms. We need a lot of washrooms for theaters, because you've got a lot of impact usage over a short period of time before the show, and particularly at intermission. But so by using those washrooms, facilitating those washrooms in the center, you would need to build less washrooms in the new development. The catering activities, site services, building services, and custodian areas, all those things are shared spaces and will reduce your cost. Next slide. This is you have to excuse my rough drawings. I'm not an artist, to say the least. But you can see this is the development option on the east side, and you can see you're sandwiched right up against the property line, pretty close, a few feet, and you're sandwiched right up against the building. One of the positive things about this kind of layout is it reduces the gross up factor, because your circulation is very, very simple, because you're in one line. You don't have a lot of circulation, and that would reduce your cost. I think we reduced the circulation from the last building program from 65% to 40%, and in fact, in practice of design, you might even be able to reduce it even more. Next slide. This is option 2. So this is taking over the senior center You would have to build more lobby space to accommodate a new senior center in there. And you can see it works. You've got a lot more space on the side. You could actually expand out a bit more if you needed to. Again, very efficient circulation because we're all in the line again. And the next slide. This is 2A. So this is keeping the senior center where it is and then building onto that grassy part of the on the northwest side of the community center. And you can see that the theater is set back from the street, so it loses its profile. You might have to add another little extension of the lobby that takes you along the side of the community center out to the front door, so that would be your sort of front door entrance to the theater, to the lobby. The circulation space again would be quite efficient because you're cramming it into a very small space, and we're talking about a very much more modest seating capacity. And the next slide. This is the building program. Gross up at 45%. That could come down. Figure somewhere in the neighborhood of 20,000 square feet, maybe a few thousand square feet less than that. And the next slide. Based on construction costs now, let me grab that file so I've got it here and I can speak to it with. Anyways, there's an investment consulting company in Toronto that gives construction costs for various types of facilities across the country, various centers. They set the construction costs for theaters in Edmonton at $485 to $785 a square foot. And so we've used $500 a square foot for construction costs. Again, that could come down a bit and you could save some on construction costs. The other thing is professional fees and disbursements. We usually figure about 16% for architects, structural, mechanical, electrical engineers, cost consultants, code consultants, geotechnical, theater consultants, and acousticians in there. But you've got some wiggle room there as well. And the next slide. It's possible, it's possible to renovate the multipurpose hall in the center into a theater. But theater requires a very specific design elements to make it successful. So there would be a lot of compromises that you would have to make to renovate the space into the thing, and it would still be costly. The other thing is that by renovating the space for theater use, because the theater requires certain requirements, it would shut out some of the current users that are using the space. Because it would make the space unusable for them. And the next slide. This is a list of what I think is what you'd have to do to the room to make it work. You'd need a raised stage at the north end of the room. You'd have to take out the temporary wall, the removable wall that divides the two space. Add retractable seating on the south end of the room. That's about a $400,000 hit. Increase the pre-function area on the east side to accommodate the lobby for 350 people. You'd have to add a coat check, a bar off, an office, additional washrooms in the pre-function area. You need a sound and lighting control room on the second floor of the south end of the space. You have to black out the windows in the space. You'd have to repaint the ceiling and the walls. You'd have a pipe grid over the stage and some of the front of house area. You'd probably have to upgrade the HVAC system to reduce the ambient noise in the room because it wasn't really designed for quiet operation. You'd have to add some acoustical material. then you'd have to add some new construction at the north end of the center, about 3,000 square feet to house the dressing rooms, green room, workshop, loading dock, storage, that kind of stuff, and some kind of technical office. You'd add a technical package of lighting, sound, video, and draperies. And then you'd have to add electrical infrastructure to support all of that equipment. And we figure that that cost would be about $2.5 million to $3.5 million to make that renovation and make it work. And you can see though that by doing that, you would compromise the space for other uses. You might find that there's more uses in a certain thing, but some of the current users would be shut out. And that's it. Paul told me I had to make this short. So, questions?
I do appreciate you coming in and doing this presentation for us this evening. As we are in the process of striking a steering committee, I believe the appointments are coming at the next council meeting. I think this work is probably going to wind up there for their review, but I will open it up for brief questions to members of council. But just as a reminder, this will be headed off for greater review by the steering committee that we're about to impanel at our next council meeting. Mr. Stewart, do you have any final comments before I open it up?
Thanks, Your Worship, and thanks, Rick. I was just going to say what you just said, Mayor Stewart, just that our intention would be to push this work as well as the previous work and everything before that to that steering committee to work through it and come to hopefully a recommendation, one or two, to bring back to council. So, thank you.
Thank you. So we'll go with Councillor Stout, followed by Councillor Van Nieuwkerk and Councillor Barnard.
Thank you, Your Worship. In accordance with your wishes, I'll try and keep this short and reasonably sweet. Mr. Schick, you referred to a more modest seating plan in option C, or the third option, the one where we're squeezing it in to the north, to the west, with behind the senior centre. Could you
It would be the same. It would be the same seating layout in each space. That would not change, and it would be retractable seating so that it could be pulled back so that you could use the space for other uses. That kind of adds a bit more of an economy to the development.
So just to be clear, so it's the same number of seats in each of the three options here? Okay, and I'm sorry, I didn't quite hear you. Did you say the seats would be retractable or wouldn't be retractable?
Well, in this model that we developed, they would be retractable because you would have the ability then to go back to flat floor. Yeah, and the theater groups then could do cabaret theater, they could do dinner theater. And the nice thing about, if you were on the west side of the building, your catering kitchen is on that side, so the access from the catering kitchen to the theater chamber, audience chamber, would be very tight, and so it's possible that you could do other forms of theater with it. The retractable seating is fairly pricey at $1,200 to $1,600 a seat, but the premium you pay is more like $400, because if you don't have retractable seating, then you have to have port in place concrete risers. You still have to have seats at $400 a seat, $450 a seat. You have to have all the electrics that power all the safety things. You have to have handrails. So although retractable seating appears to be expensive, the premium isn't. And what you're doing is you're buying additional space for a very little bit of money.
And additional functionality, therefore, as well.
Absolutely.
Yes. Okay. Thank you. I saw something quite similar in Halifax Library.
Right. Yes.
A couple of years ago. That's the sort of.
It is, but probably it would be a much better system. The retractable seating comes from a sports environment, and they tended to be noisy and uncomfortable, and not very good seats, but because of the economics of developing theaters, it's become a much more advanced technology, and so we're seeing all kinds of really interesting retractable seating. We're even seeing it now curved sections of seats that retract.
Okay, thank you. Can I ask one other question?
Sure.
We lose, I think you referred to losing about 50 parking spaces in the first option where we build it on the east side of the theatre. What's the total capacity for parking there, and is there a recommendation for the size of the car park for a theatre of this size?
That's always been a sticking point. I can tell you what, at 350 seats, yeah, you're going to need 152 parking stalls for a sold-out house. Now, losing 50, you're losing, a third of your parking there. There would be street parking. You could develop parking at the.
I'm gonna pull us back up to the 30,000 foot level, because we're into detailed design work and design questions, and the reality here is this is headed off to the steering committee to be reviewed for them to come back with recommendations.
Quite understand.
While I find the conversation surrounding parking stalls and the technology involved interesting, it's not a decision that's going to be made by this council tonight. So.
I agree. I just want to inform myself on what the pros and cons of the various options were. Thank you, Mr. Schick. I appreciate you.
Appreciate that. So yeah, let's pull this back up to the 30,000 foot level.
Can I just ask, Mr. Suter, do we know what the current parking, how many parking stalls are in the around the centre?
Through your worship, to Councillor Stout, I don't know that off the top of my head. No.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Newkirk, followed by Councillor Barnhart.
Yeah, thank you. Just more of a comment than a question. On page 10 of 174 up in the RFD, I just wanted to bring forward one of the pieces that had stuck out for me. Even before we just had the last conversation, I had this written down coming into tonight. And that was, a theater space must be large enough to support future growth and quality events. There is a strong case to be made that an inappropriate sized theater, either too small or too large, will stifle growth and discourage attendance by the population and use by community groups. The analysis that the Beaumont Society of the Arts has undertaken confirms a 350 to 400 seat theater is the correct size for the community. So, what that says is not 150 and not 600 is what the Beaumont Society for the Arts has been able to determine so far around theater size. So, as I was looking through the options in the diagrams and such, I was trying to imagine what that space would look like. And I had a look through the Mary Winspear, and I looked closely at the Lougheed and Camrose and such, and used those to kind of gauge my vision. But, 150 is too small and 600 is too big is the, what kept resonating for me in this conversation. So, just wanted to bring that comment forward. Thank you.
Councillor Barnhart.
Thank you, Your Worship, and thank you for the presentation. My question, though, is aimed more at the administration, and I think Mr. Suter. Question about which reports are actually going to the steering committee, because I know when I read this report, the RFD, I was a bit confused because it said the attachment was named the Performing Arts Feasibility Study. When I went and read it, I realized that's the addition of the Beaumont Community Center piece. So right now I have two different reports. I have the feasibility study from the first time, and then I have this report, which is specifically around the Beaumont Community Center. So I just want to be really clear. What is the steering committee going to see? And my second question, I might as well ask them both at the same time, is what is your best guess in terms of a timeline, or at least what direction is this committee going to be given as to when to come back to council with a recommendation? And I understand things don't always go the way we want them to, but what is your hope there?
Thanks for the question. Through your worship to Councillor Barnhart. The committee's going to see all of these, both of these reports and anything else that we deem to be necessary to provide them or they ask for, as far as any planning documents, other master plans, anything else that we can find. I think in order for it to have the success to get where we want to go, they have to have access to everything that we've done to date. So yes, they will see both of these. This is a continuation of the first report because the direction was to specifically target the CCBCC site for more review. And the second piece is we've got our applications in. They're coming back for nomination official council on the 22nd of June. And we're just setting up terms of reference now and the schedule. And hopefully we've got something by fall, early fall. That would be the intention, optimistically, I would say at this time.
And just a final question. My experience with groups like the task that we put in front of this group is without facilitation, they will have difficulty. So is there a plan for facilitation? Is someone being earmarked from the administration to do that? Or is there going to be an outside consultant doing that? And I guess part and parcel of this, is the consultant available to them as well?
Yes, there will be facilitation through administration. We've got a couple people at various disciplines that will be available to the committee. And we're looking at a budget to go along with that that would potentially be used for any external, either consultation, conceptual designs, civil looks, all that sort of stuff.
Thank you for that, Mr. Suter, and best of luck on that process.
Councillor Danlick.
Thank you, Mayor Stewart. Thank you, Mr. Schick and Mr. Suter for the presentation. One quick question, please, if you don't mind. If I missed it, I apologize, but I'm looking at page 3 of the attachment, 6.0 capital cost estimate, essentially $13 million. I'm not seeing a second or third number for the other two options. Is this the option to the east side of the CCBCC, or is 13 million no matter which option we take? Just to clarify, if you wouldn't mind. You may have missed that point. I may have missed it. If I did, I apologize. But please clarify if 13 million, it's all 3 options, or is it option whichever, please?
It would be for either any of the options, roughly. Give or take, plus or minus. You know, it's a real high end number, but just to give us some idea. But as I said, it's possible that we could get those construction costs down per square foot. Fees could come down, those kinds of things. Unfortunately, right now, you wouldn't want, I don't know what's like in Alberta, but on the West Coast here, boy, a sheet of plywood's like $90.
Thank you for clarifying. So the purpose of this report and the steering committee, it's 13 million, give or take, for all 3, each of the 3 options. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor Stewart. I'll yield the floor.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that. So that's the end of round 1. Councillor Stout, your hand's still up. Did you have another comment?
No, I just didn't take it down. I apologize.
Okay. So member of council willing to move to accept this report as information. Councillor Danlick.
So moved, Your Worship. Thank you.
All right. Discussion on the motion. Seeing none, call the question. All in favor? And Councillor Stout, there you are. That carries unanimously. I do appreciate the presenters coming in tonight to give us this update, and look forward to seeing what comes back from the steering committee. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right, at this time, we'll take a quick 5.